Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Giridharadhari Gopijana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare ग्रंथराज भगवद गीता की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय हरे कृष्णा वेलकम बैक अनिल प्रभु प्रवेश प्राची and Aditya. Nice. Okay, what do you guys see on my sharing? You see the website or PowerPoint?
PowerPoint.
Yes, so we are in Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. It has been a while to review these chapter sections. So let's see what are the sections here. We have covered section A and B, I hope. Last time, did we cover up to 12 or we cover up to 10? I think we cover up to 12, right? Anybody remember? So first 6 verses, Arjuna is asking, what is Nishkam Karma? What is Yoga? Lord Krishna is saying Nishkam Karma is equal to but easier than renouncing the work, Sannyasa and Yoga. 7 to 12, section B is about performance of the Nishkam Karma, which means working with detachment from the fruits or the results of one's action. And now we are entering to section C, which is about the platform of knowledge, knowing the 3 doers, the soul, material nature, and the super soul. Okay, so we'll quickly review that. I think let's go to the text. That will be better. We can read quickly the translations. Okay. We have chapter here. Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Text 1, Arjuna is asking. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Lord Krishna starts giving reply from text 2 onwards. The personality of God had replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Okay, each devotee here can read two translations. Who is going first? Aditya, Prabhu, you start, Aditya. Aditya, Anil, then Pravesh and Prachi. If Prachi is fit, otherwise you can do it with somebody else. Okay, go ahead.
Text 1. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?" Text 2. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
You can read one more.
Text 3. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. O mighty Arjuna.
Anil, Prabhu. Next 3 verses.
Yeah, text 4. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actual don't say that he who applies himself to one of these paths achieves the results of both. Text 5. One who knows that the position achieved by means of analytical study can also be attained by the devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Text 6. Merely renouncing all activities and not engaging the devotional service of Lord cannot make one happy, but a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
Next, Pravesh.
One who walks in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always walking, such a man is never entangled.
So you see in this verse how to become dear to everyone.
Controlling mind and senses.
Yeah, pure, controlling intelligence, mind and senses. Yeah, mind, intelligence and senses. So that means not being selfish, right?
Yeah.
So when we are not selfish, that means we are trying to work for others, though everybody will like us because we are working for them. Yeah. Go ahead.
8 to 9. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaging in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
Okay, who else is there in the call? I think I can read few verses. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So this is another very important. All of this is important, but this is the way we understand that although performing activities, one is untouched by this the material consciousness, when somebody is doing one's duty without attachment. One cannot be without attachment unless one is attached to Krishna, because there is only two things. Actually, there is only one thing, Krishna and Krishnas. But we think that there is something else other than Krishna. So either we are attached to Krishna or we are attached to our own conception. So when we are not attached to Krishna, that means we are attached to our own conception. So when we are attached to Krishna, then we are not affected by sinful actions. What is sin? The sin is doing anything which is not prescribed by the scriptures, doing anything which is against Krishna's will, that is sin. Text 11, the yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Text 12, the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. Yes. To get peace, the last verse of this chapter, verse 29, is called peace formula. So there, Lord Krishna says, anybody who understands Krishna to be the best friend, the beneficiary and benefactor of all the sacrifice and penances, then he attains peace. And here, Lord Krishna is saying somebody who is steadily devoted, steady, not that today I am devoted, tomorrow I am not devoted. My devotion is steady, I am always fixed in Krishna's service. Then one can attain peace. Pure, unadulterated means pure, right? Something which is pure is not adulterated. So that means steady devotion is proportional to steady peace, because one offers the result of all activities to Krishna. But when we want to enjoy the fruits, then we are entangled. Okay, so we'll read verse 13 onwards today. Section C, verse 13. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vasi navadvare pure dehi nayava kurvanna karayan. Okay, let's see. Aditya, can you read translation and purport of this verse?
Yes. Translation. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. Purport. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body or the figurative city of body are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life, in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are mentioned as follows. Navdvare Pure Dehi हमसो लेल्याते बहि वसी सर्वस्य लोकस्य सथावरस्य चारस्य च सरस्य च. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of a living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genitals. The living entity in his conditioned stage identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body.
So a Krishna consciousness person controls his nature and controls his mind, and he renounces all actions mentally, not physically. He performs all activities physically. He actually performs activities, but mentally renounces. Sannyasa aste manasa sannyasya. So by mind he gives up the attachment. Then he can live happily in the city of 9 gates. So our material body we can. So that means not attached to the body, not being in the material concept of life, not being in the bodily consciousness, but one's mind and intelligence is controlled. So in that consciousness, somebody is working the service of Krishna, right? So he is not working and not causing work to be done. Srila Prabhupada is telling that by Krishna's consciousness, we can revive real position and come out of embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes aloof from bodily activities. So what is the benefit of being away from, being aloof from bodily activity? Is that we are not entangled. We can live happily, but we are not the sufferer. Because we are not attached, because we don't identify. So when we identify something, then we suffer because of that identification. But when you identify, as per the Svetaswara Upanishad, here quoted 3:18, that if a soul identifies himself with the Lord, within himself, that is Paramatma, then he becomes as free as the Lord, even while in the body. So instead of identifying ourselves as the body, we identify ourselves, our relationship with Krishna. Therefore, we are not attached. Ultimately, it depends on what identification we carry. If I think I am Indian, then if you say something about India negative, then I will feel hurt because I think I am Indian. If I think I am a man, then if you say, oh, all men are, so and so, they are very cruel, then, oh, okay, I'm a man, I'm not cruel. I start defending myself. When I think something, some upadhi is called upadhi. When I'm attached to certain designations, material designations, depending on the bodily consciousness, then I feel hurt or I feel elated, depending on the bodily consciousness. But when I identify with Krishna, when you insult me, that means you are insulting my body. Srila Prabhupada says, you have not even seen me. You are just talking about my body. So I will not be taking it personally because I identify myself with Krishna. Then I am peaceful. Okay, verse 14. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu na karma phala sanyogam svabhavastu pravartate. Okay, Anil Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, that is.
Verse 14.
Verse 14, Prabhu.
Yeah.
The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. The living entity, as well will be explained in the 7th chapter, is one of the energies or natures of the Supreme Lord, but is distinct from matter, which is another nature called inferior of the Lord. Somehow the superior nature, the living entity, has been in contact with material nature since time immemorial. The temporary body or material dwelling place which he obtains is the cause of varieties of activities and their resultant actions. Living in such a conditional atmosphere, one suffers the results of the activities of the body by identifying himself with the body. It is ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and distress. As soon as the living entity becomes aloof from the activities of the body, he becomes free from the reactions as well. As long as he is in the city of the body, he appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor nor control of his actions and reactions. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. His best solution is to get out of the water by transferring to Krishna consciousness. That alone will save from all turmoil.
Thank you so much. So here the pure spirit soul, which is embodied. Actually, spirit soul is always pure, but when it is embodied, then it may come into bodily consciousness. But when by Krishna consciousness activity, when we get purified, and then again we can get situated in our original pure position. So the spirit soul, which has the body, which is said here by Lord Krishna, is the master of the city of his body. It is said here, Srila Prabhupada, that actually as long as one is in the city of the body, he appears to be master. But actually the fact is that we are neither the proprietor nor controller, but we are just struggling for existence. That is the reality. How much control we have? We have very limited control, very, very limited. We have choice, certainly we have free will, but we have so much constraint in this body. So the living entity, the spirit soul, does not create activities. So that means we do not create a project. We do not hire people to work in the project. And we do not create the results of project. So who is doing that? All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So we are not doing, but it is done by modes of material nature. That means we are controlled by modes of material nature. That's why Srila Prabhupada is saying that we are amidst the material ocean. And waves are tossing. That means the material modes of goodness, passion, ignorance, goodness, passion, ignorance. Like because of these modes, like we are going up and down and turbulent. We feel the turbulence. We have no control. The only way is to get out of the water by transcendental Krishna consciousness. That means we have to transcend the modes by Krishna consciousness. Our consciousness has to be filled with by Krishna. Krishna's love, Krishna's name, Krishna's activities, all we have to be our whole consciousness, our tendencies. Anytime like you disturb something, it comes to equilibrium. Our equilibrium is our material desire. But a purified soul's equilibrium is Krishna. You can disturb him here and there, but he will go back to Krishna. Like that. So always in love with Krishna, working for Krishna. Then we can get out of the material modes. Verse 15. So who is okay, the modes are the worker. So is Krishna inducing us to be in certain modes? That is answered here. Verse 15. Nadatya kasya chit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhu ajnanena avrittam jnanam tena mohyanti jantavaha. Now, Pravesh, your turn.
Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Purport. The Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty.
Your volume is too low. Can you speak close?
Is this better?
Still low somehow.
Just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yes, good, very good.
The Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. He is always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life, and thereby his claim of action and reaction begins. A living entity is by superior nature full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by ignorance due to his limited power. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is Bhivu or omniscient, but the living entity is Anu or atomic. Because he is a living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such desire is fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. And so, when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires. But the Lord is never responsible for the actions and reactions of a particular situation which may be desired. Being in a bewildered condition, therefore, the embodied soul identifies himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. The Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma or the super soul, and therefore he can understand the desires of the individual soul, as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning for living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. The individual is not therefore omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute, independent living entities. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymns therefore declare, Esu u hi evada sadhu karma karayati tam yam evo lokebhya uni nisate esu u eva sadhu karma karayati yam adho nisate. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. Agyo zantur aniso yam atmana sukha dukhayo Iswara prerito gachet swargam vasav abram avetsa. The living entity is completely dependent on his distress and happiness. By the will of the Supreme, he can go to heaven or hell as a cloud is driven by the air. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of the service to the Lord, and is thus entrapped by the nescience. And under the spells of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. The Vedanta Sutras 2.1.34 also confirm this. Vesamya nayagrineye na sapek satvat tatha hi darsayanti. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to.
So you might have seen Srila Prabhupada is quoting these three Upanishad, Vedanta Sutra and Upanishad. Why Srila Prabhupada quotes this? Lord Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gita. Why Srila Prabhupada is quoting these verses? Why not he is quoting some modern scholars? Why he is not quoting somebody, somebody else, some famous author or something? Why he is quoting Upanishads?
Because those were also what the Lord said in other texts.
Yeah, those are also words of God, Shruti, right?
Yeah.
So what? The thing is, if you want to prove something in court of law, you have to quote certain articles of constitution or the law related to that case. So in order to prove something, the Vedas are the highest proof, the Shruti Praman, Shabda Praman. Right? We have gone through those in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, the search for happiness, the science of self-realization, that there are three methods to get knowledge. One is pratyaksha, a direct seeing by your eye or hearing by ear or feeling with skin and all those things, direct evidence. Second evidence is anuman, so like making some guesswork, like when you hear a horn, then you think that the car is going. When you hear a bark, then you think that dog is barking. When you hear, some kind of drum beat, then you understand that somebody is playing drum. So these are all anuman based on your previous experience. But nowadays we don't know if somebody's cell phone is ringing, somebody's cell phone ringing like a dog barking or car horning and all those things is very confusing. So it may be wrong. Ultimately, we have discussed thoroughly in previous sessions, beginning before we began Bhagavad Gita, that Shruti Praman is directly coming from the Lord, and it is the evidence, perfect evidence. It is not manufactured by somebody with imperfect senses, but it is coming directly from the Lord. And if we want to prove anything, we can just quote from the Vedas, and then that point will be proved. It is not that you can prove by going to the sun and saying that how hot it is, but you just get the evidence from Vedas, and then you tell that okay, sun is this much hot, like that. Or you can get the evidence that Lord is engaging the soul in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages in impious activities so that he may go to hell. So you are saying the Lord is doing. Lord is here saying, Lord does not assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. The embodied beings themselves are bewildered because of ignorance, which is covering their real knowledge, right? So we have discussed earlier that Krishna creates the jail because the state creates the jail because there is a system of karma. So some people will not choose to be a free citizen because they have tendency to commit some criminal activities. So they deserve to go to jail. Another thing is that there are material modes. So people choose to be in certain modes. Some people like to drink and smoke. Some people like, very mode of goodness food like fruits and vegetables. Some people may like food in mode of passion. High calorie, high fat, or high chili and hot sauce and all those things. So we have got free will. So man proposes, God disposes. In the previous words, we learned that the material modes are active. So what is happening ultimately is that the living entity is desiring. We desire. And the Lord sanctions. Okay. I want to do something. The Lord has to sanction it. Otherwise, I cannot speak, I cannot talk, I cannot be in this Zoom call. There may be internet break, or there may be electric blackout, or there may be earthquake, or there may be something else. For some reason or other, there may be some glitch in the system, and if the Lord doesn't want, it doesn't sanction, then even we are willing, ultimately we cannot finish our task. So we desire and Lord sanctions, and material modes, the modes of nature, they execute. So I'm saying I'm doing, but actually I am spirit soul, and my body is controlled by the modes. Okay, so I'm desiring, the Lord is permitting, and then modes are executing. That's how the actions are performed. Lord is smelling our desire, like one smells the flower, and he thinks that, okay, this guy wants to do this, let it be. So the facilities are provided. I wanted to come to St. Louis today, so the car was working, okay, I could reach here. If the car was not working, the material modes would not support me. The Lord sanctioned, okay, you can go, but then material nature supported, although there was some rain on the way, but still I could reach here. So we have to get permission, sanctioned by the Lord, and execution by the modes. And we can simply desire. We are not the ultimate doer. Okay, this is the last verse in this section today. Verse 16. Jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nasitam atmanah tesam aditya vajnanam prakashayati tat param. Okay. So it's a little longer. Aditya, are you ready to read it again? How are you, Prachi? Do you have anybody to help you read?
If you can big a little bit font so I can read.
Oh, really? That's so nice to hear that. So glad to know that. Is it okay?
Yeah, this is okay.
Okay, great.
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as sun lights up everything in the daytime. Purport. Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna conscious are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnanam Plavina Jnana Jagannath Jnanihi Sarvaha Kamani and Nahi Jnanina Sadrasam. Knowledge is always highly estimated. And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna. As is said in the 7th chapter, 9th verse, Bahu Nam Janmanam Ante Jnanavam Mam Pradapyate. After passing through many, many worlds, when one is perfect in knowledge, surrender unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him. As everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime, the Krishna entity is revealed in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience? Does God become bewildered by nescience? If so, then nescience or Satan is the greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all nuisance as the sun drives away. Can you go down?
Drives away darkness.
Darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body but transcendently to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the supersoul. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect, bona fide Krishna conscious spiritual master. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claimed that he is God, although he paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter 2.12 that every living being is individual and the Lord is also is individual. They were all individuals in the past. They are individual in the at present, and they will continue to be individuals in future, even after liberation. At night, we see everything as one in the darkness, but in a day, when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality in spiritual life is real knowledge.
Real knowledge is that we are all individual and we are all Krishna's part and parcel. So when we get that knowledge, all the darkness is dissipated, then we can understand our relationship with Krishna. To get that knowledge, how do you get the transcendental knowledge? In chapter 4, we learned it, right? Anybody remembers? How to approach how to get a knowledge is by approaching a spiritual master. And how to approach a spiritual master? With submission and service and asking question in submission. Inquiry. Submission, service and inquiry. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So when the spiritual master is pleased, he imparts this knowledge, transcendental knowledge. One has to practically understand this. Prabhupada is saying, not just theoretically, but practically. And to understand or realize, practically understanding means getting the knowledge by realization, not just theoretical, but practical realization of the knowledge. When we apply it, then we understand that, oh, this is what it is happening, this is why it is happening. So we understand that. So if someone says like fire is too hard, it will burn. And then when you try to touch the fire, then you say, oh, okay. I'm burning. So Srila Prabhupada says, okay, Krishna is pure. So touch him, chant his name. So when we sincerely, purely with pure consciousness, when we chant Krishna's name, then we feel the purification. Then we get the realized knowledge that yes, indeed, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is purifying mind consciousness. So we have to apply that. Then we get realized knowledge. That is like enlightenment. Then nescience is destroyed. Ajnana is destroyed. So one very important point Srila Prabhupada is making here, that knowledge is not that I become God or you become God or everyone is God, or God is dead or God is light or God doesn't have hands and legs, God is formless. So all of this concept of impersonalism is called Mayavadis. The Mayavadis think that God is actually formless, but he takes form and then comes as Krishna. This is Mayavadi theory. They think that we are like a pot filled with air, the pot is broken, the air will mix with the outer air, and so we become God. Outside is God, inside the pot is the soul, and then once the pot is broken, we become God. Srila Prabhupada is saying that if living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by essence? Does God become bewildered by essence? If so, then essence or Satan is greater than God. So God is never covered by ignorance. Right. Some people say that, okay, Krishna also got material elements. God got material elements, material body, and he got Krishna's body. But we learn in chapter 4, Krishna is always transcendental. His body is always transcendental. There is no difference between Krishna's inside and outside. There are some Mayavadi translations of Bhagavad Gita. They said, you surrender not to Krishna as a person standing in front of Arjuna, but you surrender to the soul of Krishna inside the body of Krishna. This kind of translations, Srila Prabhupada makes a direct counter to their concept of Mayavada. So what is wrong about thinking that I will become God? Anybody here?
Your question, Prabhu?
The question is that what is wrong if I think that I will become God?
So if you think that I will become God, that means like we are in the Maya. And so, I mean, without knowing, I mean, we are in the ignorant mode and we will fall into material world very soon.
Yes, but how do you know that I will not become God?
What is that, Prabhu?
How can you say that I will not become God?
So the only thing is like we can go to the spiritual world. I mean, like if you are in Krishna consciousness, but we will never become God. We will be part of the spiritual world, but we cannot become God.
Yeah, because Srila Prabhupada is proving from 2nd chapter verse 12. Lord Krishna says, every living entity is individual. They were individual in the past, they are individual at the present, and they will continue to be individual in the future. It is not that the soul is broken and then it will join. It is not that like somebody plugged out from the God and then now we will join in the God. So the soul can never be cut into pieces. Krishna says in chapter 2, right? It can never be burned by fire. It cannot be moistened. It cannot be like a dust particle. You take like a lump of dust particles and make like a clay dough, and then you make one. I mean, still those atoms are individual. But that we are not going to be God. God is always God. It is not that Krishna was made God. Nobody is made into God. Krishna was God from before birth, after birth, all the time he was God. Because the Mayavadis have concept that if you meditate, then you will become God. Do meditation, then you will become God. This is Mayavadi theories. There is a recent translation of one prominent, Mayavada guru. He says that Krishna is having a shankha. Arjuna is having a shankha. They both blow their shankha conch shell, right? Before the war. First Bhishma blow his conch. Then the divine conch shell blown from Krishna and Arjuna and his brothers. So anybody remembers what is the name of shankha of Lord Krishna? What is the name of conch of Lord Krishna? Okay, Panchajanya. Panchajanya is the Shankha or conch of Lord Krishna, and Arjuna's Shankh is called Devadatta. Okay, so this Mayavadi translation says that right now Arjuna is blowing the conch called Devadatta because he is bewildered. But as soon as he gets the knowledge, as soon as he is enlightened with the spiritual knowledge, then he will blow the conch shell. Devadatta, he is playing Devadatta now, but as soon as he is enlightened, then he will blow the conch shell of Krishna. Panchajanya. As soon as you are enlightened, you will become that divine. You will become that God. So that is, Srila Prabhupada says, last snare of Maya, that you are thinking that you will become God. Srila Prabhupada is very strongly against it. It is not, he has manufactured something, a logic against the Mayavada, but it is in our parampara. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and he has very strongly defeated the Mayavada. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mayavada bhasis nile hoy sarvanas. If we hear the commentary of Mayavadas, then we are all finished. Sarvanas. Everything about our spiritual progress is finished. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. He has defeated Mayavada theories, Mayavada's concept. In Varanasi, there were thousands and thousands of Mayavadas, and they were criticizing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were saying, you are just singing and chanting and dancing like a sentimentalist. You are a sannyasi, you should read Vedanta. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told them, you guys are thinking the Vedantas like this and this and this. But ultimately the purpose of Vedanta is to understand Krishna and chant Hare Krishna. So I am performing the conclusion of the Vedas. And you are searching after God, like the Sankhya Yoga. They are doing like Neti, 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 like Sankhya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching directly Bhakti. One is watering the root, directly watering the root by chanting Hare Krishna. But they are searching after the root. So Mayavada is last snare of Maya, that one tries to become God. One tries to become enjoyer of Lakshmi. That means it is a Ravan mentality. Kidnap Sita. Control the material nature. Krishna says he is the controller of material nature. But we want to become God and control the material nature. So that is the false theory of Mayavada. Therefore, we have to be very careful to understand Bhagavad Gita from right source, who is coming directly in the disciplic succession of Krishna himself, so that we can understand what is Krishna consciousness, what is my nature, what is my relationship with Krishna, how I will serve Krishna, how I should be free from sense gratification, but working in detachment and attachment with Krishna. Then I am not going to get any sinful reactions, but I will be completely away from this material water like a lotus leaf. So we have to get the shelter of pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada and his followers, and they can help us by their mercy. We hope to get away from this turbulent material world. Okay, Aditya,
Yes, sir.
what did you learn today?
The name of the Krishna's conch and new things, sir. Devdatta and Panchajanya. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know that earlier.
Okay. So can you ever become Krishna?
No, sir. No, it's not possible. Until and unless I am on earth, it's not possible because we are still in vicious circle because of our karmas. And
Uh-huh. So if you go out of the earth, when you go to spiritual world, you will become Krishna?
no, sir, that's still not possible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, Pravesh. Pravesh.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah.
Just hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah. What was the question?
Yes, continue, please.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What was the question?
What did you understand today?
Okay. So one thing was that